Helps seeing the big picture, reading nonverbal communication, problem solving, perspective taking, self-advocating, and social learning. Are those things that you want your child to work on? Are those things that your child needs to strengthen? And declarative language can be so powerful in helping to strengthen those areas. OMG, y'all. It's time to talk about my favorite topic, declarative language. This is my favorite, most effective, most used therapy tool that has just been a game changer in my therapy room. I will never stop shouting it to the rooftops, talking about how amazing it is for kids of all ages, from kids preschool age to adults. No matter their ability level, declarative language is so powerful and so impactful. And I'm going to break it all down for you today. But before we get too far, hello, my name is Rebecca Robbins. I am owner of Mindshaper SLP, where we create fruitful and fulfilling lives for autistic individuals and their families. If you like this video, please hit subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's grow this channel so that we can get this information into the hands of everybody that needs it. Because in my opinion, if you're a parent, if you're an educator that works with students of any kind, you need to know about declarative language. I was fortunate enough to learn about this strategy very, very early in my speech career, and I saw the value in it immediately. I started using it immediately, and the things that come out of my students' mouths as a result of using this language strategy consistently has blown me away, and I want you to experience that for your child too. So let's just take it back to the beginning and talk about what is declarative language anyway. There are two different ways that we can communicate with people in general, but with your child, there's two different ways to communicate. And my guess is that you are using imperative language much, much more than you are using declarative language with your child. So let's talk about what is what with each of these, what each one of them are. What each one of them means. How about that? Imperative language is when you are giving a specific direction or you are asking a question that you already know the answer to. Now, think about when you talk to your child. How often are you giving them a direction, telling them what to do, or you're asking them a question? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a question you already know the answer to, but my guess is you probably is most of the time. But we're usually asking questions and giving directions. And what that does is it makes really good direction followers. And it also is a demand. And it puts the child or the person on the receiving end of the direction or the question that already has a predetermined answer in a position where there's a right or wrong answer, which increases the social pressure of that communication exchange. Now let's talk about what declarative language is. Declarative language is when you use primarily comments and statements when you're speaking to your child. That's it. It's that simple. It's that simple, but it's not easy. It's simple because it's simple to think about. All you have to do is just make a comment, make a statement, but it's not easy because it requires us to think about what we're going to say and how we're going to say it and speak in a different way than you're probably used to speaking with your child. It requires a little bit of retraining, but I promise you, if you put in the work, you're not going to regret it. It's going to pay off in dividends. So again, imperative language is when we ask questions and give directions. And like I said, it makes the child really good at becoming a direction follower or really good at answering questions. Declarative language, however, is how we can raise problem solvers. And don't you want your child to be a problem solver, to be able to navigate this world? And when they come up against something that they don't know how to solve, they have the ability, the flexibility of thought to work through that problem? Of course you do. I know that you do. And that is something that you won't get with rote learning, rote teaching, ABA sorts of teaching procedures. You're only going to get it by communicating with your child in a different way. And when it comes to academics, one of the areas that I see the gap start to really broaden with the special education population is when reading stops becoming just answering recall questions for comprehension. And then we're taking those comprehension questions and we are asking them to make inferences when answering questions about a text that is read or a story that is read, or asking a student to apply their background knowledge and what they're learning in the story to answer a question. And as we get higher and higher in the grades, those are the types of questions that are much more common than just simple recall questions when we're talking about reading comprehension. This is an area when students have language and communication challenges, it is really challenging for them to learn how to answer those inferencing questions. And then that's where we really see the gap start to widen as their neurotypical peers are able to make that sort of processing. Declarative language is a very simple way that you can start working on those problem solving skills and strengthen that thought process muscle for your child today. I think I've already kind of wet your whistle a little bit, and you're probably curious, okay, I'm on board, it's valuable, how can we do it? But before I get too deep into the how, I want to just go into a few more benefits of declarative language, just in case you need a little more convincing. So first, I'm going to read a quote from this book, which I highly recommend. You go onto Amazon right away and get this. The Declarative Language Handbook by Linda Murphy. Linda Murphy is a speech language pathologist, and she's also an RDI consultant. RDI stands for Relationship Development Intervention. No, they are not sponsoring this video, but I am a big believer in RDI and the strategies that they teach. Declarative language is a strategy that comes from RDI, and it's one of the strategies that I use from RDI all the time, and it has been very, very powerful. I'm going to read a quote from her from that book. Declarative language naturally provides opportunity for social learning across the areas of seeing the big picture, reading nonverbal communication, problem solving, perspective taking, and self advocating. I'm going to say those things again. It helps seeing the big picture, reading nonverbal communication, problem solving, perspective taking, self advocating, and social learning. Are those things that you want your child to work on? I know you're saying yes. Are those things that your child needs to strengthen? Yes. If you're following this channel, my guess is yes, these are areas that your child, even individuals that have the lowest support needs, these are the areas that they still find the most challenging. And declarative language can be so powerful in helping to strengthen those areas. One of the reasons it's so powerful is because when we use declarative language as opposed to imperative language, it's not a demand for communication. It's not a right or wrong response. I'm not saying, what color is your shirt? There's only one right answer for that question. And it puts pressure, like I said earlier, on the person receiving the question. Rather, declarative language is an invitation to the person you're speaking to respond. It's an invitation for them to share their thoughts. It's an invitation, not a demand. So because of that, it automatically increases the child's autonomy, or the person you're speaking to increases their autonomy and choice in that communication exchange, because quite frankly, they could choose not to respond because you're not demanding a response, you're inviting a response. And that's okay. We want our kids and our young adults, our autistic young adults, to have autonomy and be able to choose to not respond if they don't want to. It also increases motivation and participation in the communication exchange, again, because it lowers the pressure and it's an invitation to interact, not a demand to interact. And if you happen to have a child with a PDA profile of autism, PDA stands for pathological demand avoidance. So that is the medical terminology, the official explanation for that acronym. However, I like to say persistent drive for autonomy because that just sounds a little more neurodiversity affirming, but technically PDA stands for pathological demand avoidance. If you have a child who has a PDA profile of autism Anytime they are perceiving a demand to be put upon them or any sense of perceived control being put upon them, it activates their nervous system into that fight, flight, or freeze that we've talked about many times here on my channel. It puts them neurologically in a position where they feel unsafe. And that's where you get that opposition and that resistance because they're in that FFF state, the fight, flight, freeze state. However, if you are able to communicate with that individual using declarative statements, it is no longer you telling that child what to do. You are just simply commenting on the situation. You're commenting on what could be happening in the situation. And it puts the autonomy, the choice, the control back in the child's hands so that they can choose to respond. They can choose how to perform. And that will be calming for their nervous system and it won't activate that fight, flight, or freeze response for them. This is a really, really, really powerful tool, especially if you know someone with a PDA profile of autism. It also helps your child learn how to respond to comments and statements. If you think about a conversation that you have with somebody, my guess is it's not a question and answer session. Sure, there's probably some questions in there, genuine questions that you don't know the answer to. You're not having a conversation with your friend and saying, "Oh, what color are your shoes?" Because your friend damn well knows you can see what color their shoes are, right? So, what do you say to your friend instead? "Oh, I love your shoes. That's a great color." That's declarative language. This is how we talk to each other, right? But when we only speak to our kids in questions that we already know the answers to or giving them directions, then they have no opportunity to practice knowing how to receive comments and statements and knowing how to respond to comments and statements so that when someone who is unfamiliar to them speaks to them out in the community and they use a comment or a statement, they don't know how to respond. It might be a deer in headlights kind of situation because anybody who's been in their world is only ever talking to them in directions or questions they already know the answers to, or just asking them questions. And that is not going to help them be successful communicating with others outside of the home in the community. We want to use statements and comments when we're talking to our autistic kids or autistic young adults, autistic individuals of any ages, so that they can start to practice knowing how to respond to that form of communication. Because when we are socially interacting with each other, we are using comments and statements most likely more than questions or giving each other directions. Just think about that. The next time you're having a conversation with your friend or your spouse, try to draw your attention to how you're communicating with him or her. Are you asking questions that you already know the answers to? I already know the answer is no to that, unless maybe you're in like an argument situation, right? But are you asking question after question after question? No, you maybe ask a question, they respond, you respond with a comment and maybe make another comment that states your opinion on the situation. And then you're exchanging comments and statements, most likely back and forth. If we want our kids to be conversational, we have to teach them how to respond to comments and statements. Declarative language is the way, my friends. It is the way. I think I have thoroughly convinced you that it is adequate. It's more than adequate, that it is a amazing tool to use. So let's talk about how to use it. So I'm going to give you an example of something we might say to our kids using imperative language. And then I'm going to tell you how we could change that to be a declarative statement and what the benefit is of saying it in that way. Let's take go get your shoes on. I'm sure you've all given this direction to your kids in the past when you're trying to get them out the door for school, you want to go outside and play, whatever the reason, go get your shoes on. Now, instead, using declarative language, you might say something like, "Oh, you forgot your shoes, silly." Now, when I say you forgot your shoes, silly, first of all, if you feel into the difference between those statements, go get your shoes on. You forgot your shoes, silly. It just feels a lot lighter to say you forgot your shoes, silly. And obviously, if this is a teenager, maybe you're not saying you forgot your shoes, silly. You would maybe adjust it to be like, I don't think you can go outside without your shoes, dude. It just keeps it more lighthearted. It's a positive situation. It keeps your child wanting to engage in the situation. And also, when you say, you forgot your shoes, silly, your child's going to look at you, look down at their feet, realize that they're going outside, and then of their own volition can make the choice to go get their shoes. Maybe they don't respond right away, maybe because they don't know where their shoes are and they don't have the language to say, "Where are my shoes?" Then you could say, "I see your shoes right over there." And you can tell them. Now, you're not saying, "Go get your shoes over there." You're still using a declarative statement. "I see your shoes over there." And now you're also teaching them to tune into your perspective because you're saying, "I see your shoes over there." And we definitely want to help our kids be better perspective takers as well. Instead of saying, "Wipe your face," you have some food on your face. And again, when you're doing that, the child is of their own volition, autonomy. They can decide that they want to wipe the food off their face. And they're also working on their inferencing skills because you didn't tell them what you wanted them to do about that food on the face. You're just saying, "You've got some food on your face." So they have to infer, make an inference, or problem solve what they need to do in this situation. "Oh, I have food in my face. I better get my napkin and wipe my face." Do you see where wipe your face gives no opportunity for that inferencing, no opportunity for that problem solving, but it's getting the exact same result of the child wiping their face. Instead of asking, "What do you want?" you could say, "I don't know what you want right now." That's a declarative statement. I don't know what you want right now. If your child is in a meltdown situation, they might not have the capacity to respond to something like that. They probably won't even have the capacity to respond to "What do you want?" in that moment. So you have to kind of take this in stride. I'm not saying you have to only speak in comments and statements and you can never use questions and directions again. No, sometimes if you're busy and you need to get out the door, that's not the time to work on your declarative language skills, because I will tell you, especially in the beginning, it does take longer to interact with your child this way because your child's not used to you speaking this way. And so it will take them longer to process what you're saying and know what you want them to do. The more you use it, the quicker it will become. But just know, I'm not saying that you have to use comments and statements 100% of the time. I'm just saying, let's try using them the majority of the time, or a lot more than you already are. Instead of saying, "What should you be doing right now?" We've said this to our students or our child that's not on task. We just ask them to do something and they're not doing it. They're twirling their hair or playing with their toy. Instead of saying, "What should you be doing right now?" I think maybe you forgot what you're supposed to do right now. You're using an I statement. Declarative language uses a lot of I statements. When you are in doubt, not knowing how to make something declarative, you could always say, "I wonder if you forgot what you're supposed to be doing," or "I wonder if you forgot what I asked you to do. I'm wondering if you heard me." Those are all great declarative statements. And again, that enables your child to do some perspective taking and some problem solving. They have to recall, "Oh, wait, right, pick in the context of the situation. What am I supposed to be doing right now? Oh, right, Mom told me to do this." And they problem solve and figure it out on their own so that they have autonomy and control as well. Instead of "Take out the trash." "Yuck, that trash smells." So you're just making an inference that something needs to be done with the trash, and it's up to the child, if that's their chore, to decide what to do with it. "How was school?" Instead of saying, "How was school?" Now, that's not a question that you already know the answer to. And technically, if you're asking a genuine question, that is still considered declarative because it's not like a quiz. However, you can make it a statement or comment by saying, "I'd love to hear about your day." And now it's an invitation rather than you're putting your child on the spot with, "This is a question and you have to give me an answer right away." And also, when you say, "How was school?" What was good? Okay. "I'd love to hear about your day." Good or okay doesn't really fit as a response, does it? It invites a more elaborate response than just saying, "How was your day?" "Do you have any homework?" Instead of saying that, "I think we need to check your homework folder." That's just you stating the reality of the situation. "It's time to check our homework folder. I think we need to check your homework folder." And now your child can infer to go get the homework folder and bring it to you and look at it together. And maybe it doesn't activate their nervous system. It doesn't trigger them to be like, "Oh, I don't want to do my homework, Mom," because you've said it in a different way. So what happens when you're using declarative statements and it doesn't work? or your child doesn't respond. Again, when you first start using this way of speaking with your child, expect it to be clunky, expect it to be slow. And you have to pair it with pausing. You can't just give a declarative statement, a way of speaking that your child has never really been exposed to before, give them 2 seconds to process it, and then all of a sudden start prompting them anyway. They're gonna need a longer time to process. So be comfortable pausing. If you have to count to 10 in your head before you say another word, do it. That will give your child time to process what you're saying and what you are expecting from them or what you're hoping for them in response. So please, 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 when you start doing this, you have to pause after you make a statement to allow your child to process and figure out exactly what it is that you want them to do, because they're not used to you speaking this way. And again, the more you do it, the more your child gets used to interacting in this way, the shorter the pauses will have to be. Let's say you give your child a declarative statement like, you have some food on your face. Let's take that example. And you pause. Nothing happens. Oh, the declarative statement didn't work. I have to jump to the question or the direction right away. No. Let's not do that. We're going to give the declarative statement. We're going to pause. If they don't respond, count to your head to 10. If they don't respond, give them another declarative statement that provides more information. So we started with, you have food on your face. Nothing happened. Your napkin's right there. Pause, see if anything happens. I use my napkin when I have food on my face, and then maybe you model it. Right there, I gave 3 declarative statements. It's called providing scaffolding. Each one is providing a little more information, a little more support, because it seemed like whatever you said, the child wasn't quite getting why you were saying it, or they weren't processing the information all the way, so they needed a little more help to get there. But if you can stay with the declarative language, keep following it through with pauses, that is going to be much more beneficial than jumping to the direction or the question right away, because your child will still have the opportunity to problem solve through every situation. And then when you finish up with, I use my napkin when I have food on my face. Yeah, you're going to demonstrate a model wiping your face with the napkin. And maybe that the gestural cue is what ultimately helps them understand what you're asking them to do. Or even you could say like, oh, the food's right here, something like that. Those are all declarative statements. Those are some of the mistakes that I see parents make when they first start implementing declarative language, is they don't pause long enough after making the statement. And then when a child doesn't know how to respond to the comment or statement right away, they jump right back to the imperative language because that's what's familiar and comfortable. But try to stay with it. Keep with the pausing and just keep trying to provide more information. And remember, when you can't think of how to say something declaratively, if all else fails, you can start with, I wonder if your napkin would get rid of the food. That's probably going to give them the most information, and it's almost like giving them the direction, but it's still kind of like masked or hidden in a declarative statement. The direction, use your napkin to wipe your face, is embedded in that, but it's starting in a declarative way. So it's still getting the benefits of declarative language when you can do it that way. Before I send you off to go start using your declarative language, because I know that you're chomping at the bit to do so, I think that the best way to start this for you as the parent is to increase your awareness first and foremost. Awareness is always the first step in habit formation, because what we're doing when you decide you're going to start using declarative language is we're creating a new habit, a new way of talking. And so the first step in establishing any new habit or breaking a bad habit, not that imperative language is a bad habit, the first step to retrain yourself from doing something is to increase the awareness. So what I want you to do is just notice how often you are asking your child questions that they already know the answers to, or that you already know the answers to, or giving your child a direction. I just want you to start bringing that to your awareness. And I bet you're going to be surprised at how often you catch yourself asking a question you already know the answer to, or giving a direction. It's because it's how we've been trained to speak to kids, especially kids with disabilities. Once you do that and you're catching yourself, then I want you to start thinking about it and ask yourself, how could I say this in a declarative way? How could I say this as a statement or comment? Or how can I use a statement or comment to get my child to do the thing that I wanted them to do with the direction? That's the first step. And that's all I want you to do at first. Just give it a try. All it takes is just rephrasing how you say things. And it's simple in concept, but it's not easy to implement because it does require a little bit of retraining, a lot of bit of retraining how you speak to your child, more time, but it is worth all of the energy and effort you put into it because the benefits of declarative language, you're going to hear things come out of your child's mouth that you didn't think that you would ever hear before. I promise you, I've seen it so many times. So go forth, be fruitful with declarative language, have fun, and let me know in the comments how it went. Ask me if you have any questions of how you could say something in a declarative way. Let me know in the comments below. As always, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and share with anyone you know that has an autistic loved one in their life. See you soon.